He didn't just steal her savings. He started auctioning off pieces of national security history. Rare, irreplaceable machines she'd used to break codes, vital to Allied victory, vital to surviving the Cold War, selling them as vintage novelties, quaint collectibles, while telling everyone she'd lost her mind, that she was confused, delusional, painting her as a senile old woman lost in her memories. It sounds like something from a twisted thriller, but it happened. Every calculated, cruel step of it. I'm Victoria, and on this channel we talk about the unbelievable, the stories that make your blood run cold and sometimes boil with righteous rage. Today's story, it's definitely one of those. It comes from a woman I'll call Agnes, a woman whose quiet retirement concealed a mind like polished steel, razor-sharp, a mind forged in the crucible of secrets and codes and global conflict. And the betrayal she faced, it wasn't just about money, oh no. It was far deeper, far more insidious. It was an assault on her identity, her monumental legacy, everything she was, everything she had achieved in silence. But they underestimated Agnes badly. They saw an easy target, frail, alone. They poked a sleeping lioness, forgetting her claws were still sharp, her mind even sharper. And the way she fought back, the sheer calculated brilliance of it, the cold fury. You need to hear this. Stick around, subscribe right now if you haven't. Because this story, it's a masterclass in righteous fury turned into devastating, precise strategy. You won't forget Agnes, ever. Let me take you back. Let Agnes tell you in her own words how the nightmare began, masked by smiles and false concern. I always valued quiet precision, order. These weren't just preferences, they were necessities, tools of my trade. For decades my world was mathematics, intricate patterns, the hidden language beneath the surface of chaos, cryptography they called it. A quiet war fought with symbols. During the tense years, the Cold War, my work was vital, essential, though no one knew my name. Silent battles fought with numbers and logic, protecting national secrets, uncovering the enemy's intentions. Working deep within places like Bletchley Park, later GCHQ, it demanded infinite patience, meticulous attention to the smallest detail, absolute discretion. These skills became second nature, woven into the very fabric of who I was. After retiring, finally, I craved peace, genuine tranquility. My small house nestled in a quiet village filled with books, cherished memories, and my collection. Not jewels or fine art, my tastes were different. My treasures were the tools of my former life, a tangible history. Enigma machines, several variants, each with its own story, Lawrence cipher attachments, the complex beasts Churchill called tunny, Hagelin converters, elegant Swiss engineering, SIGABA prototypes, the American rotor machine, a fascinating challenge, even some early British Typex components, each one a piece of history, a complex puzzle I understood intimately. Some I'd even worked on, modifying, improving. Others I'd worked asterisk against, spending sleepless nights trying to find their weaknesses. They weren't just metal and wires and bakelite to me. They were monuments to human ingenuity, testaments to the power of logic, and sometimes stark warnings about human folly. My late husband, Arthur, he understood. Mostly. He was an engineer, a practical man, appreciated the mechanics, the history, the sheer cleverness of them. He didn't fully grasp the secrets they held. I could never share that, but he respected their significance. We didn't have children, our life was dedicated, focused, demanding, our work consumed us. Our bond was built on shared purpose, quiet understanding. After Arthur passed, suddenly a heart attack, the quiet deepened, became heavier. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful anymore, it echoed. My nephew, Marcus, my younger sister's son, started visiting more often then. He brought his wife, Chloe. Marcus was smooth. Always had been, even as a boy. Excessively charming, solicitous, dripping with concern. Always asking about his Aunt Aggie, all alone in the big house, using the diminutive I disliked. Chloe was polished, very polished, coolly ambitious, with eyes that seemed to catalogue everything, assessing value, price tags included. They'd bring groceries, organic things I never bought, fuss over me, rearrange cushions. "You shouldn't be rattling around here alone, Aunt Aggie," Marcus would say. That practiced tone of deep concern, slightly patronizing. "This place is far too much for you, all this dusting." Chloe would add, her gaze flicking from the antique grandfather clock, a family heirloom, then lingering on my cipher machines, her expression carefully neutral but unsettling, calculating. I appreciated the company at first, truly. The loneliness after Arthur, it could be a physical weight, crushing. They seemed genuinely interested, asking about my war work in vague terms. About my unusual collection, Marcus, especially, he'd lean in wide-eyed, feigning fascination, as I explained the significance of a particular rotor setting on the Enigma, or the story behind acquiring a rare Lawrence teleprinter attachment from surplus. "It's absolutely incredible, Aunt Aggie," he'd gush. "You're sitting on a goldmine of history here, seriously valuable stuff." A goldmine, yes. History, yes. Valuable, yes. That combination of words should have been a blaring siren. A red alert, but I saw my sister's boy, family, flesh and blood, the only close family I really had left. My sister had passed years before. I trusted him, or perhaps I chose to trust him, wanted to trust him. Foolish, incredibly naive, especially after a lifetime spent deciphering deception, reading hidden meanings. But this felt different, this was supposed to be different, this was blood. Family ties. He started helping with my finances, delicately suggesting it. "Let me take this tedious burden off your shoulders, Aunt Aggie," he'd offered, so smoothly, voice like velvet. "All these bills, online banking, it's a nuisance. You should focus on your hobbies." Hobbies, he called my life's work, my contribution, my secret history. Hobbies, the word strung even then. I let him, reluctantly at first, then with growing relief. My eyesight wasn't what it used to be, macular degeneration creeping in, the tiny print on statements. The glare of the computer screen, it was tedious, frustrating. He set up automatic payments, consolidated accounts, promised efficiency, presented neat summaries printed in large font, always with a reassuring smile, always calming. "Everything's perfectly in order, Aunt Aggie," he'd chirp. "Running like clockwork." Chloe started rearranging things, my things in my house, subtly at first, a gentle intrusion. "Just tidying up, Aunt Aggie, making things easier for you to find." A vase moved here, a stack of journals there. Books moved, my carefully ordered shelves disrupted, papers shifted on my desk as small objects, personal trinkets Arthur had given me misplaced, turning up in odd spots. Then bigger things, significant things. One of my Hagelin machines, a beautiful Swiss C52, wasn't on its usual display shelf in the living room. My stomach clenched. It was my favorite piece for its elegance. "Oh, that." Chloe said breezily when I asked, not meeting my eye. Marcus moved it into the study, said it was getting a bit dusty out here, wanted to protect it. But it wasn't in the study, I checked immediately. My heart hammered. Later that day, Marcus found it, tucked away behind some old encyclopedias on a bottom shelf, a place I never would have put it. "See, Aunt Aggie," he said gently, patting my hand with full sympathy. "You just forgot where we put it for safekeeping. It happens. Maybe we should start making some little lists for you, reminders." The gaslighting had begun, so subtly I almost didn't recognize it. Subtle, insidious, chipping away at my confidence, my sense of reality, my own memory. They started suggesting I wasn't eating properly, though my fridge was always full with the groceries they bought. Hinting I'd missed appointments I knew I never made, appointments * they claimed to have reminded me about. Forgetting entire conversations we never had. According to them, "Are you feeling quite all right, Aunt Aggie?" Marcus would ask, furrowing his brow with theatrical concern. "You seem a little confused today, more than usual." Chloe would chime in, her voice soft, concerned, yet somehow undermining. "Maybe we should schedule a checkup with Dr. Evans just to be safe. He's wonderful with patients with memory concerns." Dr. Evans, their * doctor. Young, ambitious, part of their social circle. Not my trusted GP of 30 years. I started noticing small discrepancies in the financial summaries Marcus provided, despite the large print. Amounts slightly off, unfamiliar transaction codes, recurring payments to vendors I didn't recognize. When I questioned them, gently at first, not wanting to seem accusatory, he'd wave it away with a smile. "Just bank jargon, Aunt Aggie, internal codes, nothing to worry your head about. It all balances out perfectly in the end." He'd show me the final balance, which always looked plausible, healthy, even. But the details, the small inconsistencies, they nagged at the part of my brain trained for decades to spot anomalies, flawed patterns, inconsistencies, deception. Like a flawed cipher, simple but jarring if you looked closely, something didn't add up. The structure was wrong. Then came the power of attorney conversation introduced over tea and biscuits one afternoon, framed as a practical necessity, a loving precaution. "Just in case, Aunt Aggie," Marcus said, his voice full of that damnable false sincerity. "If anything happens, if you get sick, heaven forbid, we need to be able to manage things for you, pay your bills without delay, make sure you're taken care of properly." Chloe nodded solemnly, her expression perfectly arranged into one of loving concern, a mask she wore expertly. "It's just paperwork, a safety net, so we can step in immediately if you need us. It gives us peace of mind knowing we can look after you." I hesitated, instinct screamed no. A lifetime of guarding secrets, of understanding the immense power of control, of access, made me deeply wary. Signing control away felt fundamentally wrong, but they pressed, gently, persistently, relentlessly, mixing concern with subtle hints about my increasing forgetfulness, my vulnerability, my confusion. "Remember when you couldn't find the Hagelin, Aunt Aggie? What if something happened and you couldn't tell us your bank details?" Marcus pressed. They made me feel old, incapable, confused, a burden, exactly as intended. In a moment of profound weariness, of gnawing self-doubt, clouded by their constant suggestions, their manufactured reality, I signed. The solicitor they brought, a friend of Marcus's, rushed through the explanation. I signed away my control, my autonomy, believing it was a loving precaution against future frailty. It wasn't a safety net. It was the key, the master key, the key they needed to unlock everything I had. The change wasn't immediate, they were too clever for that, too patient, but it was systematic, a slow tightening of the net. They visited more often, then started staying over, essentially moving in bit by bit, occupying the guest room permanently. "To keep a closer eye on you, Aunt Aggie, make sure you're safe," Chloe announced, arranging her toiletries in the bathroom. My routines were disrupted, my precious quiet space invaded constantly. Their chatter, their music, their presence, they managed my mail, sorting through it before I saw it, just saving you the trouble, Aunt Aggie. They screened my calls, taking messages, often forgetting to pass them on. Old friends, former colleagues from the service, were politely told I was resting, feeling under the weather, or not up to visitors today. Isolation, the oldest trick in the manipulator's handbook. Cut the target off from their support network, make them dependent. I started feeling foggy, genuinely foggy, tired all the time, listless. My thoughts, usually so clear and precise, felt sluggish, less clear, disconnected. I suspected they were tampering with my medication, my regular prescriptions, maybe adding something mild to my nightly cup of tea, something to enhance the confusion they were so eager to document. But how could I prove it? My word against theirs, who would believe me? The confused old woman. Just as they were painting me to neighbors, to anyone who asked. Then the collection, my beautiful machines, my history. One morning, sunlight streamed into the living room, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. I went to dust the Enigma, the rare 4-rotor naval model, M4, a jewel. It felt wrong in my hands. The weight was off, subtly but undeniably. The key action when I depressed a letter, slightly different. Less crisp. I examined it closely, my weakening eyes straining. Peering at the rotors, the finish, the serial number plate. It looked identical, almost perfect, a meticulous replica. But it wasn't mine. The subtle patina of age was missing. The specific wear marks on the keys I knew so well gone. Panic, cold and sharp, visceral, cut through the manufactured fog in my head. Adrenaline surged. I rushed, heart pounding, to check the others, the Lawrence attachment on its stand gone, replaced by a convincingly crafted but hollow, empty shell. A mockery. The SIGABA prototype, also a replica. Cold, perfect, lifeless. Piece by piece my history, my treasures, my life's tangible connections were being swapped out, stolen right under my nose, vanishing, while they lived in my house, ate my food, used my money, controlled my life, and told me I was losing my mind. The audacity was breathtaking. I confronted Marcus that evening, trying desperately to keep my voice steady, betraying none of the icy rage solidifying within me. "Marcus," The Enigma machine, the M4 in the living room, it's not the real one. He feigned surprise, widening his eyes, then shifted seamlessly to deep concern, a flawless performance. Aunt Aggie, what on earth are you talking about? It's right there, exactly where it's always been. We dusted it together yesterday, remember? He picked it up, held it out. See, same beautiful machine. No, I insisted, my voice rising slightly despite my control. It's different. The weight, the keys, it's a fake. A replica. His face hardened almost imperceptibly, the charming mask slipping for a fraction of a second, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Aunt Aggie, please, you're getting confused again. We talked about this, your memory, it plays tricks sometimes. Stress makes it worse. He exchanged a quick, subtle look with Chloe, who had drifted silently into the room, a look of calculated pity, mixed with something else, smug triumph. Maybe you need to rest, Chloe said softly, gently guiding me towards my armchair, her touch feeling like ice. All this excitement isn't good for you. Let's have a nice cup of tea. I felt trapped, utterly suffocated, cornered in my own home. They controlled everything, my finances, my access to the outside world, my medication, even, it seemed, my own perception of reality. The rage began to build then, cold, deep, immensely powerful, replacing the fear and the confusion and the hurt. The analytical part of me. The part that deciphered complex codes under extreme pressure, that saw hidden patterns in noise, started waking up. Emerging from the fog. They thought I was a frail old woman, fadding away, easily manipulated. They didn't know the analytical engine still whirring beneath the surface, quiet but powerful. They had made a critical, fatal error. They had grossly underestimated their target. Victoria, can you even imagine? The depth of that violation, the absolute calculated cruelty of it. Selling off unique pieces of world history, asterisk her asterisk history, replacing them with cheap fakes while systematically convincing her she was crazy. It just makes my skin crawl. It's pure evil hiding behind smiles and cups of tea. This is the kind of story that reminds you the most dangerous monsters sometimes wear a familiar face, call you auntie. Whisper words of love. If you're finding this as utterly enraging and intense as I am, please hit that like button. Let YouTube know these important stories need to be heard. Because Agnes's fight, her awakening, it was just beginning. Back to her story, the exact moment the fog began to truly lift and the strategist, the codebreaker, emerged from the shadows. The turning point, it wasn't a single dramatic revelation, not a movie scene. It was quiet, insidious, almost missed. Just like everything else they did. It happened on a Tuesday morning, grey, drizzling outside. Marcus was on his mobile phone in the hallway, packing back and forth, agitated. He thought I was napping in the lounge, safely doped into quiet compliance with my morning medication. But the fog had thinned considerably that day. The cold, precise rage was acting like a stimulant. Sharpening my senses, cutting through the chemical haze. I heard snippets of his conversation, muffled by the closed door, but enough, more than enough. Final auction lot confirmed. The Swiss one. Yes, the Hagelin C52, pristine condition, photos sent, buyer in Zurich is eager, transferring the final tranche through the usual channel, no traceability. The Hagelin, my beautiful C52, the one they claimed I'd misplaced, the one they miraculously found hidden away. He wasn't just swapping fakes for originals, he was actively selling the real machines, systematically dismantling my life's collection, my legacy piece by valuable, irreplaceable piece, liquidating my history for cash. And Chloe, I heard her later that same day talking softly on her own phone, presumably to one of her socialite friends, laughing a brittle, triumphant sound. Absolutely rolling in it soon, darling. The old dear hasn't got a clue, bless her cotton socks. Thinks her precious dusty junk is still gathering dust on the shelves. Honestly, Marcus is brilliant. He even has the specialist dealers convinced she has advancing dementia. Makes selling the provenance so much easier, avoids awkward questions. Dementia, advancing dementia, junk, precious junk. That word, junk, applied to machines that held the secrets of nations, machines that shaped history, machines I understood better than I understood my own manipulative nephew. It wasn't just theft anymore, this wasn't about money. Not really, it was desecration, a deep personal violation. It was the final, absolute disrespect, the ultimate contempt. The fog didn't just lift then, it evaporated completely, burned away by pure incandescent fury. But not hot, messy, uncontrolled anger, no, this was different. Colder. Sharper. This was the cold, clear focus I used to feel when faced with an unbreakable cipher, a complex enemy system. The absolute certainty that their asterisk was asterisk a solution, a weakness if you were methodical enough, patient enough, and ruthless enough. They thought they were playing checkers, moving pieces clumsily for quick gain. I was about to start playing high-stakes, multi-dimensional chess. My mind, the cryptographer's mind, kicked into high gear, decades of training surging back, observation, analysis, planning, execution, the old mantra. First step, information, I needed proof. Hard, undeniable evidence, not just overheard snippets. They watched me constantly like hawks, but they underestimated my stillness, my ability to observe without seeming to, a skill honed by years of covert work. I started noticing patterns, reinforcing my suspicions. Marcus's late-night computer sessions, always locking the study door, the soft click of the key echoing in the quiet house. Chloe's sudden influx of expensive jewelry, delicate diamond earrings, a new designer watch. Things my carefully managed by them, budget couldn't possibly afford, new clothes arriving almost daily. Whispered phone calls at odd hours, coded language, not complex codes, just the simple evasions of common, greedy thieves, using pet names for accounts, locations for buyers. They thought I was too deaf, too senile, too drugged to notice or comprehend. They were profoundly wrong. I needed access to Marcus's locked study and, more importantly, his laptop computer, his digital fortress. Where I suspected the real financial records, the auction details, the incriminating communication were hidden. He used a password, changed it frequently, boasted about his cybersecurity awareness. Child's play for someone who used to crack encrypted diplomatic cables before breakfast. Seriously. I watched him type subtly over several days, catching glimpses from different angles, through the doorway crack, reflecting in a picture frame glass, knotting the hand movements. The finger positions, the rhythm, the common keyboard patterns people unconsciously fall into, muscle memory. It wasn't a sophisticated password, people rarely are even when they think they are. Hubris is a security flaw, a combination of his childhood dog's name, Rusty, and his university graduation year 98. Predictable, Rusty 98, pathetic. The next challenge, getting access time. Uninterrupted time. They rarely left me alone in the house together anymore. One always seemed to be on watch, but Chloe had her burgeoning social climbing activities, her charity luncheons, her expensive shopping trips to London, her spa days. Marcus had his meetings, sometimes out of the house, likely arranging the next sale, meeting dealers or shippers. I needed a window, even a small one. 15 minutes might be enough, and I needed to be absolutely clear-headed, razor sharp. I started mimicking swallowing my pills. The ones Chloe dutifully put out for me each morning and night, hiding them under my tongue, palming them, disposing of them later, flushed away. The chemical fog began to recede faster, my thoughts sharpening daily, clarity returning like a sunrise. It was risky, incredibly risky. If they noticed, if they suspected, they might escalate their medical strategy. But the alternative, letting them destroy me completely, erase me, was simply unthinkable, unacceptable. The opportunity came on a Thursday afternoon. Crisp autumn air outside. Chloe was off to a high-profile charity gala planning meeting, dressed to the nines in one of her new ill-gotten outfits, making sure I saw the price tag. Marcus had an urgent conference call, taking it out in the back garden for better reception and privacy, packing back and forth by the wilting roses, occasionally glancing towards the house, checking my window. My chance, my window. Maybe 10-15 minutes tops. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, not from age, but from adrenaline, pure, focused anticipation, the thrill of the operation. I slipped silently out of my room down the hallway towards the study. The door was unlocked for once. Marcus must have forgotten in his haste to take the call outside. Careless, arrogant. His laptop was open on the desk, a screen locked, displaying his corporate logo screensaver. I sat down in his expensive leather chair, took a slow, deliberate breath. Centered myself, focused, my fingers, still nimble despite the arthritis, flew over the keyboard, entering the password I'd observed, RUSTY98, click, access granted. The desktop sprang to life. Icons littered the screen, my heart hammered against my ribs, a familiar sensation from long ago missions. Now efficiency, speed, precision, no wasted movements. Where would he hide the incriminating files? Not in plain sight on the desktop or in my documents. He wasn't that stupid, just arrogant enough to believe his simple password and locked door were sufficient. I scanned directories, system files, looking for unusual file names, hidden folders, partitions, using search functions for keywords. Auction, provenance, sale, inventory, CH, Zurich. My eyes landed on a folder named Estate Planning, innocuous enough, plausible deniability. Inside, more folders, neatly labeled, invoices, receipts, medical contacts. All seemingly legitimate, but one stood out jarringly, Project Legacy, legacy my legacy. The sheer bitter irony made my stomach churn. His project was its destruction. Inside that folder, several password-protected zip files, of course, a secondary layer of security, predictable but necessary to bypass. But Marcus wasn't a security expert. He was an opportunistic thief with an inflated ego. What kind of password would he use here? Something meaningful to him. Probably related to the project itself. His motivation. I tried variations, Agnes Legacy. Collection value, Marcus Inheritance. Chloe Future, no luck, Access Denied. Each denial costing precious seconds. Think like Marcus, what was his asterisk real motivation? Beneath the greed, control, power over me. The thrill of the con. Maybe something simpler, related directly to the money, the transactions. I looked at the file modification dates. Correlated them with the approximate times I suspected recent sales had occurred, the appearance of replicas. Then I remembered the overheard phone call, the Zurich buyer, the Hagelin C52, the final tranche payment. What if the password was related to that specific recent transaction? I needed more information, specific details, bank records, transfer confirmation codes, something concrete. I quickly navigated to the browser history, hopping for clues. Cleared recently. Very suspicious, covering his tracks. Amateurish, but maybe cache files, temporary internet files. Fragments left behind, digital breadcrumbs. My technical skills were dated, rooted in mainframe-era computing, but the fundamental principles of data retrieval remained. Logic, persistence. I initiated searches, deep system searches, found fragments, deleted file remnants, references to specific online auction houses specializing in historical artifacts, scientific instruments, luxury collectibles, names I recognized, reputable houses he'd likely deceived, and some less reputable dealers known for discretion, operating in the grey market. Then a breakthrough, a tiny fragment of a cached email confirmation, partially overwritten but readable, confirming a wire transfer from a Swiss bank account, an amount, a date, a reference code, heavily abbreviated, cryptic. Looks like SWREF followed by numbers. And a tantalizing note at the bottom, likely Marcus reminding himself, password hint, Zurich conf, amount K plus year. My pulse quickened, hope surged, the amount was there in Swiss francs. The year was the current year. K likely meant thousands. I formulated the password zirconf amount in thousands year, typed it in carefully, Access Denied. Frustration mounted. Time was running out. I could hear Marcus's voice in the garden getting louder, ending his call. Wait, abbreviations, amounts. K for thousands, maybe rounding, maybe a code within the code. Think cryptography, basic substitution, transposition, common tricks. No, Marcus wasn't that clever. He was fundamentally lazy, driven by greed, not intellectual curiosity. What if the confirmation wasn't for the full sale amount? Maybe just his commission, or a partial payment, a deposit. I looked at the cached email fragment again, scanning every pixel, another detail I'd missed. Almost hidden in the footer, buyer internal ref, Chloe at hash 7B, Chloe's account, number 7B. What did the B mean, a sub-account? What if the password wasn't the transaction amount at all, but something personal related to Chloe? His partner in crime, his motivation, her birthday, their anniversary. No, too simple even for Marcus. Too obvious. Account number 7B, Project Legacy, could it be that simple? Related to the folder name and Chloe. I tried variations. Chloe 7B, Chloe Act 7B, Legacy 7B, then Project Legacy. The ultimate goal, fulfilling Chloe's materialistic ambitions, their shared dream built on my destruction. What if the password was CHLOELEGACY7B? Combining the project, the beneficiary, and the cryptic reference. I typed it in slowly, deliberately, CHLOELEGACY7B, hit enter, praying silently, access granted. The lock icon vanished. The zip file opened instantly, revealing its poisonous contents. Spreadsheets, meticulously detailed lists of my entire collection, every single machine, every accessory, every manual, each item catalogued, cross-referenced with estimated values, auction results for those already sold, buyer details, sometimes coded, sometimes explicit, shipping manifests, tracking numbers, dates, amounts, corresponding exactly to the sudden appearance of the cheap replicas in my home. A sickening timeline of betrayal. Scanned documents, expertly forged provenance letters, using scanned copies of my old university letterhead meticulously recreated, my signature flawlessly forged using samples from old letters he'd tidied up. Faking history to sell history. Emails, reams of communication with dealers, buyers, auction houses, logistics companies, haggling over prices, arranging secure pickups, discussing payment methods, often requesting untraceable transfers. And worst of all, far worse than the theft itself, a folder titled simply Medical Strategy, chillingly mundane. Inside, correspondence with a shady private investigator he'd hired, tasking them with tracking my real doctor's appointments, my movements outside the house, notes on my known prescriptions, dosages, potential side effects to mimic or exploit, detailed discussions via encrypted messaging apps with Dr. Evans, their doctor, about documenting cognitive decline. Memory lapses, increasing confusion, strategies for gradually increasing medication dosages to manage agitation, which clearly meant keeping me docile, confused, compliant, ensuring I wouldn't question anything. There were even draft legal documents, preparing for an eventual competency hearing, aiming to have me declared fully incapacitated, legally stripping me of all rights, perhaps even institutionalized, giving them permanent, unquestionable control over me and everything I owned. It was all there, cold, calculated, horrifyingly detailed, clinical in its cruelty. The full, monstrous scope of their betrayal laid bare in cold, hard digital text. Not just theft, but a meticulous plan to erase me mentally, legally, professionally, personally, to steal my life's work, my reputation, my freedom, my assets, my very mind. The cold fury solidified into something harder, sharper, denser. Ice, pure, sharp, unforgiving ice. I knew exactly what I had to do, no hesitation, no doubt. I couldn't just copy the files onto a USB stick. Marcus might notice the access logs later if he checked, though his arrogance probably made him careless. He might notice the recently accessed files list. Too risky. I needed an external expert, someone completely trustworthy, someone outside this web of deceit. Someone with the sophisticated skills to mirror the entire hard drive remotely, securely, untraceably, leaving no footprint. There was only one person I could possibly trust with this. One name came to mind instantly. Dr. Aris Thorne, my former colleague, my brilliant protégé back in the GCHQ days. He saw patterns others missed. A truly brilliant mind, quiet, intense, utterly dependable. Now a leading cybersecurity consultant in London, highly respected, highly discreet. We hadn't spoken properly in years. Life takes people in different directions, but the bonds forged in that intense, secret world, facing down shared threats, they run incredibly deep, unbreakable. I found his private contact details online using Marcus's laptop, a secure professional portal, then scrubbed the browser history clean, meticulously, covering my tracks far better than Marcus ever could. Overwriting cache, deleting temporary files, clearing logs. Leaving no trace of my search or the brief connection. I needed a secure channel for initial contact, untraceable communication, away from the house network they controlled. My own laptop was old, likely compromised by them already. Keyloggers, spyware, I couldn't risk it. A public library computer, too public, too easily observed. CCTV everywhere. Then I remembered Arthur, my dear Arthur, his old shortwave radio setup in the attic. His passion project. Still there, gathering dust. Wires neatly coiled. An anachronism, obsolete technology in their eyes, easily overlooked. Invisible, perfect, secure in its obsolescence. I formulated a brief message using a simple one-time pad substitution cipher we used to use for non-critical, deniable comms back in the day, something Aris would recognize instantly. Unbreakable without the shared key, which was based on a specific page from a book we both cherished. A message requesting urgent contact. Citing a specific, obscure shared project code name from decades ago, a project involving counter-encryption, Nightingale. Our inside joke about singing machines. That night, long after the house fell silent, Marcus and Chloe asleep in their rooms, dreaming their greedy, smug dreams, I slipped quietly up the narrow attic stairs, the air thick with dust and memories. The old radio equipment hummed faintly to life, a comforting, familiar sound from a past life, a life of purpose. I tuned it carefully, the frequency dial glowing softly, transmitted my short, encrypted message burst on a designated low-traffic frequency. Hopping, praying, Aris still monitored the old channels or had digital alerts set for specific keywords like Nightingale. A digital tripwire. It was a long shot, a desperate message in a digital bottle tossed into an analog sea, a whisper across the decades. I waited, nerves stretched taut, sitting on an old trunk in the cold, dusty darkness. Listening to the static hiss. For 2 long days, nothing but silence. Empty airwaves. Doubt began to creep in, cold and unwelcome. Had I imagined Aris's enduring loyalty? Was he even still alive, retired, unreachable? Had I exposed myself for nothing? Was Marcus listening somehow? Then, on the 3rd night, as I almost gave up hope, a faint, almost imperceptible reply crackled through the speaker. Encrypted, of course. Short, precise, unmistakable rhythmic pattern. Aris's digital fingerprint. Nightingale acknowledged. Secure channel established. Awaiting instructions. Stand by. Aris. Relief washed over me, so potent, so overwhelming it almost buckled my knees. Tears welled up hot against the cold resolve. He remembered, he answered, I wasn't alone. The game was truly on. Now I had an ally, a powerful one. Aris, working remotely with breathtaking expertise, guided me through setting up a highly secure, encrypted connection using Marcus's laptop during another brief window of opportunity, while Marcus was out and Chloe was meditating, napping. He remotely mirrored the entire hard drive, every damning file, every hidden folder, every deleted fragment he could recover, uploading it securely, invisibly, to an encrypted server completely under his control. A perfect digital copy of their entire plan. He found more than I had, much more. Deleted emails he skillfully recovered, hidden partitions on the drive, evidence of Marcus systematically liquidating my substantial stock portfolio, transferring the funds through a complex web of offshore accounts, routing money through anonymous shell corporations linked directly back to Chloe's name. Names designed to sound legitimate. The sheer scale of the fraud was breathtaking, far beyond just the theft of the collection. It was wholesale plunder. They were systematically gutting my entire estate. Everything Arthur and I had worked for, leaving me with just enough in my accessible accounts to maintain the illusion of solvency, while they prepared to seize the rest upon my incapacitation or death, planning for the long game. With the mountain of digital evidence secured, irrefutable proof, Aris put me in touch with a lawyer he vetted personally, someone he trusted implicitly from previous sensitive cases. Ms. Evelyn Chen, young but razor-sharp, fiercely intelligent, tenacious. Specializing in complex financial fraud and elder abuse cases, known for her meticulous preparation and aggressive litigation. We met discreetly at a quiet cafe miles from my village, using one of Chloe's predictable lengthy spa appointments as my perfect cover story. I pretended I was visiting an old friend. I laid out the entire story, The initial manipulation, the isolation, the gaslighting, the theft of the collection, the horrific medical manipulation plans. The full extent of the financial fraud, presenting the core evidence Aris had uncovered on a secure tablet. Ms. Chen listened intently, her expression hardening from professional concern to controlled, righteous anger as the sickening details unfolded. She barely touched her tea. "Agnes," she said finally, her voice quiet but firm, vibrating with intensity, "this is monstrous, utterly despicable, but we have them, absolutely cold. The digital footprint Marcus left." His arrogance combined with technical ineptitude was his undoing. They thought they were dealing with a confused, frail old lady. They weren't counting on a master cryptographer. She smiled then, a thin, sharp, predatory smile. It was quite reassuring. And they certainly weren't counting on us. The plan we formulated together, Aris joining via secure video link, was multifaceted, precise, coordinated, and utterly devastating. A counter-operation. We wouldn't just aim to reclaim the stolen assets, that was secondary. We wouldn't just seek criminal charges, though that was essential. We would systematically dismantle their lives, expose their cruelty, their calculated greed, their disgusting abuse, to everyone they sought to impress. To the entire world, if possible. Chloe's carefully cultivated social circle, Marcus's professional contacts. The exclusive art and antique world they were so desperately trying to infiltrate, using my collection as their entry ticket. Everyone would know. The truth would be undeniable. The strategy involved simultaneous legal injunctions, freezing every known asset worldwide, contacting auction houses and known buyers immediately, reporting the medical conspiracy involving Dr. Evans to the General Medical Council and the police, and a touch of psychological warfare. A final twist. My idea. Fueled by that core of solid ice where my trust used to be, they wanted to control the narrative, paint me as senile and incompetent. Fine. We would let them think they were succeeding, let them walk deeper into the trap, right up until the moment the steel jaws snapped shut. "Victoria, okay, just take a deep breath with me. Wow, the level of meticulous planning here on both sides, it's genuinely chilling." Agnes, turning her unique, highly specialized skills from code-breaking state secrets to life-breaking for her abusers, it's incredibly intense, and honestly, part of me finds it deeply, deeply satisfying. What do you think at this stage? Is this carefully planned response pure justice, or is it leaning into calculated revenge? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We really need to talk about this ethical grey area. And stick with me, don't go anywhere, because the execution of Agnes's plan, the final act, it's surgical, precise, and unforgettable. The next few weeks were a performance, the most difficult performance of my life. I played the part of the increasingly frail, confused, dependent old woman they believed me to be, the character they had created for me. I allowed them to help me more, leaning on Marcus's arm, asking Chloe to repeat things, pretending not to follow conversations. I seemed more dependent, more forgetful, sighing about my failing memory. I even let them schedule the crucial appointment with Dr. Evans. The one they were counting on, the one they hoped would start the official cognitive decline documentation process, the beginning of the end for my autonomy. Inside, the ice burned cold. Every feigned moment of confusion, every forced vacant smile, every time I called Marcus dear boy, it fueled the resolve, strengthened the ice. Ms. Chen worked swiftly, silently behind the scenes, preparing the legal onslaught, a whirlwind of activity. Injunctions filed under seal to prevent tipping them off. Restraining orders prepared, the mountain of digital evidence compiled by Aris organized into irrefutable dossiers for the police and prosecutors. Every I dotted, every T crossed. Aris, meanwhile, worked his magic in the digital shadows. He traced the stolen machines, locating several key pieces through international auction records, shipping manifests, and discreet inquiries within the tight-knit historical technology and cryptography communities, people who revered these machines. He contacted the buyers where possible, primarily institutions and serious collectors, explaining the situation delicately but firmly, providing incontrovertible proof of original ownership, and the fraud involved warning them they were in possession of stolen goods, highly sensitive historical artifacts obtained through criminal deception. Documented theft. Panic began to ripple through the niche high-value world Marcus was so arrogantly exploiting. Reputations were at stake. Buyers started contacting Marcus directly, urgently demanding answers, proof of clear title, threatening immediate legal action of their own, demanding refunds. I could see the strain starting to show on Marcus. He became jumpy, irritable, snapping at Chloe. Chloe's forced smiles looked increasingly brittle, her eyes darting nervously. The mask was cracking under pressure. They argued in hushed, panicked tones at night, thinking I was asleep or too deaf to hear. "I told you that Zurich dealer felt shady," Chloe hissed one night, her voice sharp with fear. "His reputation wasn't clean. How the hell was I supposed to know?" Marcus snapped back, his voice tight with panic. "It's all starting to unravel, the provenance is being questioned everywhere, someone's talking, leaking." They suspected disgruntled rival dealers, bad luck, perhaps a security breach at an auction house. They never, ever suspected me, the frail old lady napping in her chair. The day of the pivotal appointment with Dr. Evans finally arrived. A Wednesday, D-Day. Marcus drove me, fussing nervously. Chloe stayed home, claiming a headache, more likely counting her blood money or shredding documents. He prepped me carefully in the car on the way, rehearsing my lines. "Now, Aunt Aggie, just answer the nice doctor's questions honestly, okay? Tell him about your memory troubles, how you get confused sometimes, how things slip away. It's for your own good. So we can get you the best help." His voice was smooth as ever, that practiced, caring tone, but I detected the underlying tremor of desperation. He needed this evaluation badly. It was crucial to their endgame. We walked into the modern private clinic. Dr. Evans greeted us with a professional, yet slightly too knowing, overly sympathetic smile. He knew his role in the charade. The examination began, standard questions, date, time, place, simple memory tests. Drawing a clock face, repeating lists of words. I answered, truthfully for the most part, but carefully, subtly, highlighting the recent onset of confusion, the fogginess, subtly linking it with apparent distress to Marcus and Chloe's increased involvement in my life, their handling of my finances, the changes to my medication routine they had implemented, planting seeds of doubt about the cause. Dr. Evans took copious notes, nodding sympathetically, occasionally exchanging a colluding glance with Marcus when he thought I wasn't looking. Then, exactly on schedule, the examination room door opened without a knock. Ms. Evelyn Chen walked in, power suit, determined expression, eyes like flint, followed by 2 uniformed police officers, stern-faced, purposeful, and Dr. Aris Thorne, my brilliant Aris, looking grimly satisfied, holding a tablet displaying the root directory of Marcus's mirrored hard drive contents. Project Legacy visible on screen. Marcus's face went completely slack, jaw dropping, eyes wide with utter disbelief warring with dawning, sickening horror. The colour drained from his face. Dr. Evans looked utterly bewildered at first, then pure panic flashed in his eyes as he saw Aris, the police uniforms, and the damning evidence on the tablet screen. He knew instantly he was caught. "Marcus Thorne," Ms. Chen said, her voice clear and ringing with authority in the suddenly silent room. "You are being served with a High Court injunction freezing all assets related to Elena Agnes Ainsworth's estate worldwide. Bank accounts, property, investments, trusts, safe deposit boxes, everything." One officer stepped forward and handed Marcus the thick sheaf of legal documents. He didn't take them. They fell to the floor. "Furthermore," Ms. Chen continued, her sharp eyes locking onto his collapsing form, "a comprehensive file of evidence has been presented to the Crown Prosecution Service regarding multiple counts of fraud, theft on a grand scale, conspiracy to defraud, and potential serious violations under the Mental Capacity Act related to financial and psychological elder abuse." The second officer stepped towards Marcus, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "Marcus Thorne, I am arresting you on suspicion of fraud by false representation and theft." "You do not have to say anything," the formal caution began. Marcus sputtered, finally finding his voice a pathetic whine. This is insane, a mistake. Aunt Aggie, tell them it's all a ridiculous misunderstanding, tell them you're just confused. I looked at him then, directly into his eyes, the ice that had formed in my veins finally surfacing in my gaze, cold, clear, unwavering. There is no misunderstanding, Marcus, I said, my voice perfectly clear, strong, steady. Utterly devoid of the confusion I'd expertly feigned for weeks. You preyed on my love and my trust, you systematically stole my legacy, my history, you conspired to steal my mind, you and your wife, Chloe. His face crumpled completely, the smooth, charming facade shattering into a million pieces, revealing the terrified, greedy, inadequate man beneath. He actually stumbled backwards. Chloe wasn't spared the coordinated strike. Oh no, a second police team, accompanied by another sharp-suited associate from Ms. Chen's firm, arrived simultaneously at my house, knocking firmly. They served Chloe with the same global injunctions, arrested her on the same serious charges witnessed by startled neighbors peering through curtains. They confiscated her newly acquired jewels, her designer bags, her expensive car, all identified by Aris and Ms. Chen as purchased directly with stolen funds, proceeds of crime. The look on her face, as vividly reported later by the arresting officer with some satisfaction, was apparently quite memorable. Pure, unadulterated shock, quickly followed by sputtering, indignant rage and denial. The mask dropped. Dr. Evans, confronted by Aris's meticulously compiled digital evidence of his complicity, the damning emails and messages discussing medication management adjustments and cognitive documentation strategies, with Marcus immediately began cooperating fully. Desperate to save his own medical license and avoid prosecution himself, his detailed testimony would prove crucial in detailing the cold-blooded conspiracy to medically incapacitate me. He turned on Marcus instantly. The fallout was immediate, swift, and brutally effective. The injunctions froze everything. Instantly, Marcus and Chloe were left with literally nothing but the clothes they stood up in and a few personal effects. Access denied to everything. Their carefully curated social world imploded overnight. Spectacularly, Ms. Chen strategically leaked key, anonymized details of the case, protecting my privacy, focusing on their actions to select journalists she knew, focusing on the shocking betrayal, the theft of priceless historical artifacts, the planned gaslighting and medical manipulation of a vulnerable national treasure. The narrative control shifted entirely. The story became a minor sensation, particularly in the antique technology and historical artifact circles where Marcus had tried to establish himself, and spreading like wildfire through the local society gossip columns Chloe so desperately courted. The shame, the public humiliation was absolute, total social annihilation. Their supposed friends, their business associates instantly distanced themselves. Phone calls went unanswered. Doors slammed shut figuratively and literally. Reputations were utterly ruined beyond repair. They became pariahs overnight. Legal proceedings moved forward relentlessly, efficiently. Faced with the overwhelming, irrefutable digital evidence Aris had secured, the complex financial paper trail, Ms. Chen's forensic accountants uncovered, Dr. Evans's damning testimony, and the recovered stolen items providing physical proof, Marcus and Chloe had no viable defense. None. They ultimately pleaded guilty to reduced charges, still significant felonies, primarily to avoid a lengthy, even more humiliating public trial where every sordid detail would be exposed. Fraud, theft, conspiracy to defraud, abuse of trust. The sentences were significant. Prison time, not decades but several years each, enough to shatter their lives completely, enough to be a real punishment. Restitution orders were issued by the court demanding repayment of every penny stolen. But they had nothing left to pay with. The vast majority of the money was gone, spent lavishly, or hidden deep in complex offshore accounts that Aris and international asset recovery specialists were still painstakingly working to trace and reclaim, a slow, arduous, expensive process with no guarantee of full success. Some money may never be found. Recovering the actual stolen machines was even harder, more complex. Some buyers, mostly reputable institutions and ethical private collectors, horrified by the deception and provenance fraud, returned the items immediately once contacted by Ms. Chen and presented with the evidence. They wanted no part of it. Others, particularly anonymous overseas buyers or those operating in less regulated markets, proved more difficult. Protracted, costly international legal battles ensued, ownership disputes, jurisdictional challenges. Some precious pieces, my beautiful Hagelin C52, the one Marcus sold to the shady Zurich dealer, never recovered, lost forever to the murky grey market, a permanent painful scar left by their boundless greed, a loss I still feel keenly. But the majority, the core of my collection, the iconic Enigma M4, the Lawrence attachment, the SIGABA prototype, the Type X components, piece by piece they came home, returned, carefully cleaned, expertly restored where needed, back in their rightful places, or at least back under my control. My house felt quiet again, truly quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet now, cleansed, purified, cleaned of their toxic presence, their insidious influence, their cloying, false concern. The fog in my head was completely gone, utterly banished, replaced by a sharp clarity I hadn't felt in years. My mind felt honed. I was sharper, definitely warier, perhaps harder, forever changed by the ordeal. The naive trust I had misplaced in family shattered beyond repair. A painful lesson learned far too late in life. But my mind, my legacy, my sense of self, my history, I had reclaimed them, wrested them back from the brink. With Aris's invaluable ongoing technical help and continuing guidance from the formidable Ms. Chen, I established the Ainsworth Foundation for Cryptographic History and Preservation. A formal entity. I donated my entire collection, the recovered machines, my extensive research papers, Arthur's original engineering notes and blueprints, everything to the foundation, to be housed securely within a respected national museum and research institution, under strict conditions, ensuring they would be preserved properly, studied respectfully by serious scholars, appreciated by the public, and protected forever from grasping hands and greedy hearts, guarded for posterity, my legacy finally secured, not as junk, not as items for sale, but as vital pieces of history, protected, shared. I live more simply now, much more simply. The big house was sold, too many ghosts, too many painful memories lingered in the rooms. I have a smaller apartment now, modern, manageable, highly secure. Minimalist. My finances are handled by a trusted, independent fiduciary financial advisor recommended by Ms. Chen, with multiple checks and balances, transparent reporting. Never again will one person have control. I have cautiously reconnected with old friends, former colleagues. The ones Marcus and Chloe tried so hard to isolate me from. It took time, humility. They were shocked, horrified by the details of what happened, but ultimately wonderfully supportive, understanding, vindicated in their earlier concerns about Marcus. Was the final outcome justice, or was it meticulously planned revenge? Perhaps it was necessarily a bit of both. A calculated response proportionate to the offence. They tried to erase me, to systematically turn me into a non-person. A confused, helpless old woman whose life's treasures and hard-earned assets could be plundered at will. They tried to steal my mind. Instead, I used the very skills they dismissed and failed to understand: the precision, the analysis, the patience, the cold logic forged in a world of state secrets and high-stakes deception, to dismantle their world, their reputations, their lives. Utterly. They showed me no mercy, no empathy, no shred of human decency. I showed them precision. Cold, hard, logical precision. The ice remains within me, a permanent protective layer around a core that is, perhaps, harder, less trusting than it once was. That is the scar they left, but I am free, I am whole, vindicated, my mind is my own, sharp and clear, and my history, my legacy is safe. Forever, that is victory, hard won but absolute. Victoria, wow, just wow, take a moment. Agnes's story, the sheer cold calculation of the betrayal by her own family, met with an even colder, more calculated, more intellectually superior reclamation. It's truly breathtaking, isn't it? Utterly compelling. The way she weaponized her unique skills, the very essence of who she was, her brilliant mind, turning them into tools to defend herself, to expose the truth, to achieve a specific, devastating form of justice. It's such a stark reminder: never, ever underestimate anyone, especially someone who has spent a lifetime understanding secrets, deception, and long-term strategy. Still waters run deep. Agnes found her peace in the end, albeit a harder one, more solitary peace than she ever deserved. Scarred but victorious, Marcus and Chloe faced the complete and utter destruction brought about by their own cruelty and insatiable greed. A self-inflicted downfall. Was Agnes's response harsh? Uncompromising, absolutely. Yes. Was it necessary? Was it proportionate? Given the profound depth of their betrayal, the planned, systematic destruction of her mind, her reputation, and her legacy, maybe it was the only language they were capable of understanding. The only deterrent that could possibly work. What do you honestly think? Did Agnes go too far in dismantling their lives so completely? Or was her precise, targeted response perfectly calibrated justice for an almost unimaginable crime? Where is the line between justice and revenge? Share your honest reactions and thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your perspectives on this complex, morally grey situation. Let's discuss it. And if these kinds of powerful stories of resilience against the odds, of finding strength in the face of betrayal, of fighting back when cornered, resonate deeply with you, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and please hit that notification bell so you don't miss out. You won't want to miss what's coming next. We have more incredible stories lined up. Thanks so much for being here, for listening, for engaging with these powerful, important narratives. Your presence makes a difference. I'm Victoria, and I'll see you in the next story.